Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit here, back again with Attack on Titan Season 4. We are on Episode 3, and in the last episode, Midnight Train. So we are still sticking with the perspective of the Marley side, and in particular there was a lot of, emphasis on the Eldian Titan shifters, Reiner being pretty much at the forefront. I think that was like the most interesting part of last episode actually was Reiner when he was telling the story and like the tales of when he was over on Paradis, and of course they're all expecting him to talk about how devilish the Paradisians are and everything like that. But Reiner is sort of flip flopping when he's telling his story because that split personality thing is still coming through, and it's like it's putting a crack in that sort of idea that the stories that they were told is not entirely true. But Gabby mostly, being a kid and being easily sort of influenced by everything that's happening around her, the way that she grew up, and she's been told stories similar to how Reiner would have, about how devilish these people are and everything like that. And hearing that, Gabby was the one to speak up to be like, kind of, for a moment you could almost see like there could be a way through to her, which is something I was talking about in episode 1, in the post discussion about how these are still kids and they're still easily impressionable. So whatever happens in this, this final season coming up to the end of the story, we may be able to have the Paradisian lot actually get through and tell the story. You know what I mean? Like if it's Armin or somebody like that, because remember Armin cares about more than fighting. So if anyone's going to get that across to to people, I think it's going to be Armin that's going to do it. I think Eren's too much focused on. He's too determined in such a fashion that I feel like it's going to be hard to sort of calm Eren down to that point. But we'll see what happens with that. Another thing as well is Falco and Colt's family was something I didn't actually realise, because in episode 2, Falco actually told us his last name, which was Grice, I believe. And I actually watched the end of season 3 again, and Grisha's right-hand man in the resistance group was also Grice, right? So it's interesting to note that Falco and Colt's family was actually a part of the resistance group. Now, I don't know which family member that was. It seemed a bit too young to be like a father to them. So, it could be like an uncle or somebody like that. But it's interesting to note that that is actually the case. They were also talking about the Tybers as well, which is a new family that that they were talking about, which is in possession of another Titan, and the last Titan, I believe, which is the Warhammer Titan. Now, I can't even imagine what that is. I don't even know. Is it just a Titan that has a massive fucking Warhammer? You know what I mean? I don't know what that would be, but I think that's the last one. So very, very interesting. And then other than that, I think the one question actually I did have from the last episode was what did Zeke mean by not in this room? And some people clarified that it's pretty much like the idea that Zeke knows that it's kind of like, that they are listening in. You know what I mean? Like he knows that, but he's not supposed to know that maybe, and therefore, we obviously had that sort of. The juxtaposition of one of the Marlians questioning not in this room, and also Reiner doing it as well, meaning that obviously Reiner's akin to it, to what Zeke probably means, and also the Marlians are as well, and the possibility of Zeke possibly has this sort of idea that he's just doing this for the Eldians and he doesn't give a shit about the Marlians. He's just doing this for his Eldian lot. But we'll see what happens with that. Going forward, I mean, Zeke only has 1 year left on his contract, so with his Titan, I think the fact they call it a contract, you know what I mean, as if they have to sign off on it. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't think there's anything else to really talk about. So I think we're just going to get into episode 3 and see what we get. So as always, The reaction will be here on YouTube. It will be a bit sort of faded to, you know, try and avoid it being taken down for copyright and everything like that. But if in the future, for whatever reason, if it does get taken down for copyright, I will re-upload this video as a discussion only, and the link to the reaction will be in the description below. And as always, there's always the link to the full length in the description as well. If you want to watch my reaction to this episode in full, then the offer is there for you. But yes, there's nothing else to really talk about, so we're going to get in episode 3 of season 4, see what we get. So without further ado, let's go.
私たちは見捨てられたんだ。だから壁に囲まれた収容所に住んでいるんだよ。お父さんはマーレ人だから。
Really?
マーレ人に生まれていれば。
あの頃俺はマーレ人になるために戦士を目指してたんだ。
Yeah, so that's the offer then, is that if they do their bidding, they will become Marley.
お前ら知ってるか？あと数年でパラディ島に攻撃を仕掛けるってさ。
Zeke.
俺たち7人の中から一挙に6人だ。
ああ、何がやっただ。一人余るならドベのお前だろ。
なんだと？
Reiner? What?
お前の長所はなんだよ。お前が評価されたのは試験で綴ったマーレーの忠誠心だろ。
お前はエルディア復権派の残党か。は
あ？ Kind of looked a bit like Eren there.
俺が隊長に報告してやる。
今の恨み節くらい誰だって言うんだよ。
Galliard was the one that didn't end up going, you know, like, as well.
俺はマーレ人になって母さんと父さんと3人で暮らすんだ。
何？聞いてなかった。
She's still back there, like, doing that for her father's sake, right? Like, it's just...
パラディ島の悪魔を成敗すれば世界を救えるんだ。
It's the same thing. It's like the opposite of what, well, the exact same thing as what Eren was saying. It's the same thing as what Eren was saying, like, if we go across the ocean and whatnot, right, if we get rid of our enemies, then we'll be free, you know? It's the same... The door of hope. Oh, shit. Well, I haven't seen a female Titan in a long time. Cool.
鎧の巨人は硬質化に特化した巨人。マーレの盾となり攻撃を引き受ける巨人には我慢強いブラウンが合っている。アギトの巨人は強襲型だ。小ぶりな分最も素早く強力な爪と
that's what Marcel looked like.
獣の巨人は相変わらずだ。何より奴の血には秘めた力が。
Yeah, because he does have royal blood in him.
車力の巨人は並外れた持続力で長期間の任務に対応できる。判断力のあるピークで間違いないだろう。超大型巨人。
Fucking hell. It's just a nuke.
破壊の神だ。
子供に始祖奪還計画を託すなど俺には正気とは思えん。
そうか。たった今その子供たちが国を一つ潰してみせたじゃないか。
おかしいだろ。
That was another nation that
お
crushed.
前が選ばれるんだ。
ベはお前だった。それだけだろ。
Jesus.
ポッカ。
ライナー、すまない。
Is that his father?
父さん。
It is.
そうなんでしょ。母さんは僕が生まれる前、この弊社で働いてた。
あの女に言われてきたんだろう。俺に復讐するために。くそー。よりによってガキを戦士に。お前の出自が調べられたら俺の一家はおしまいだ。エラエルディアの悪魔の親子から。
Jesus Christ, man. That was his reason for going, really.
託された選ばれた戦士。
Maybe that's why he was so easy to, like, change and, like, fit in with the cadets over on Paradis. Because
ライナ、すまない。お前は本当は戦士に選ばれるはずじゃなかったのに。俺がお前を持ち上げたり、弟を貶めたりして、軍に印象操作したんだ。
Oh, really? That's what it was?
なんで謝るんだよ。
Oh my god! That's why I pushed him out the way, because he was feeling responsible for Fucking hell.
長距離走であんたに負けたの初めてだよ。くそ。もうマルセルは帰らない。
だって壁に近づかなければ巨人はいないって。
もういい、帰ろう。
They all wanted to turn back.
ダメだ。
But it was Reiner that wanted to move forward.
このまま任務を続行するんだ。
And he was the only one that ended up returning later on.
始祖を獲得しなきゃもう故郷には帰れないんだ。
自分の身を守るためなら私たちを脅すってわけ。
Jesus.
何が名誉があれ人だ。選ばれし戦士だ。アーレもエルディアも全員嘘つきで自分のことしか考えてないくせに。
Fuck. Fucking look at that image. Fuck.
ライナーは死んだ。マルセルが必要なら俺がマルセルになるから帰ろう。みんなで故郷に。
Jesus. So interesting getting this at the, like getting their perspective just before they hit the walls, you know. Smiling Titan. Fuck.
母の願いを叶え父と3人で幸せに暮らせると思ったから母は叶わないと分かっている夢を見続けていた。
Feels like so long ago, dude.
のない戦士で教師のはずだった。まだ何も分かってないんだ。
Wow.
ここは
ウォールローゼの中だ。
兄ベルトルトごめんな。
Wait, did
俺本当の戦士になるから人類を救うためです。
he wasn't lying either, was he?
あれは明け方だった。やけに家畜が騒がしくて耳慣れない地響きが次第に大きくなった。
That's the same story that he took when he was talking to Eren that one time. Eren and Armin, right?
よう、ジョーちゃん。こんなじじいをつけました。
Kenny.
なかなか男を見る目があるようだな。
そこで働く母から父親の話を聞かされて育ったから一目で分かって。
妹に誓ってねえな。そいつは俺が一番笑えない状態。
The one who died and was like a prostitute.
ひどいよ。パパ。
Fucking hell. Jesus. It's crazy.
すごいな。この足の感じだと今日は雪か。
いや、この上半身は晴天だ。
あいつがいたんじゃもう限界。
この5年の成果を持ち帰ればマーレは失望するだろう。
じゃあ何どうしろっての。
ウォールローゼを破壊する。
あんたらの友達も大勢死ぬね。
何度も言ってるだろう。奴らは友達じゃない悪魔だ。
ずっと同じ夢を見るんだ。なんで首をくくる前に
right, okay.
僕たちにあんな話したんだろうって。
ライナー、どうやったらそうなれる。このままじゃ俺は何も果たせず終わっちまう。
That's so similar, man. That's so similar.
ただやるべきことをやる。ただ進み続ける。
Keep moving forward, yeah.
そうだよな。
That must have been when he specifically
巨人
started.
を一匹残らず駆逐するんだろう。お前ならやれる。
That must have been when it started his split personality. Fucking hell.
俺にはまだあいつらが。
Fuck, that's current time. Jesus, Reiner.
病院。
This is the infiltrator, isn't it?
みたいですね。
Well, I think it was the infiltrator.
ここに心的外傷の治療に来てるが、俺のは嘘だ。
That's Eren.
生涯で家まで帰れないってことにしてるが、本当は帰りたくないだけだ。
That's fucking Eren, dude.
家族で顔を合わせづらくてな。
Oh fuck, he's here.
人に言うか。
He must have actually took off his own leg to do
戦
this.
士になるための訓練か。ええ。でも俺はなれません。
Fuck.
それはよかった。
Oh my.
君はいいやつだ。長生きしてくれるなら嬉しいよ。俺はここに来て毎日思う。なんでこんなことになったんだろうって。
He's not lying.
心も体も蝕まれ、徹底的に自由を奪われ、みんな何かに背中を押されて地獄に足を突っ込むんだ。
Yeah.
大抵その何かは自分の意志じゃない。他人や環境に強制されて仕方なくだ。ただし、自分で自分の背中を押したやつの見る地獄は別だ。それは希望かもしれないし、さらなる地獄かもしれない。
That's pretty much Eren and Reiner then.
それは進み続けた者にしかわからない。
Oh fucking hell, dude! I can't believe it's Eren. Oh. Okay, episode 3, The Door of Hope. Wow, it's just a really cool episode all around because it just ties up everything together in a circle. This is the episode, I think, that really sort of puts forth that idea that, you know, in the past, and I've talked about this a lot. I've talked about actually a little in the past, like, sort of couple episodes, but this idea that, like, you know, when you're, like, during those last seasons, like, when, you know, when it's like, if you're trying to put sort of, I guess, a group of sort of, I guess, bad guys just based upon, like, oh, well, our protagonist group is obviously the Paradis lot, then automatically you put the sort of the Reiner group and everyone that's, like, sort of from Marley and everything in the sort of the villain group, because obviously you don't want your main characters to lose, because those are the ones that you've grown up with and everything like that. And at that point in the series, you're still dealing with the fact that, you know, Reiner, Bertolt, Annie kind of betrayed them. You know what I mean? They betrayed their trust. So, you know, you see what they did, you know, with Marco and everything like that. So you've got to sort of deal with that during that point. The idea that these are the, like, you know, they're the actual villains of the show during those seasons. And this was something that I kind of had to deal with people in the comments and stuff like that. Obviously, people, you know, I've seen this in, like, other comment sections as well, like when I've gone, you know, to watch, like, Attack on Titan reactions from other people, that people in the comments don't like it when, during those seasons, that they don't like it when people talk bad about, you know, Reiner's group, you know, because the likelihood is that those people who are commenting saying that they don't like it is that they already know what's coming up. They already know the reasoning why, you know, the Reiner's group and everything, like the situation that they're in and the reason why they are doing what they are doing. So what I would say is that in the future, if there's ever a new reactor that goes to react to, you know, Attack on Titan, try and refrain from, like, commenting, like, if that reactor, like, you know, reactor actually thinks of, like, Reiner's group and everything like that as, like, on the bad side, right? Because they never explain themselves. Like, even in, you know, in season 3, the Battle of, you know, Shiganshina, Bertolt never explains why. He just says this is what has to be done. And because during that moment in time, you're not getting any information, it's purposefully aggravating to the viewer, because you're just thinking, like, why don't you explain why you're doing this, and then maybe we can understand. But he never does, and that's on purpose story-wise, because when you eventually get to this episode, for example, right, that is when everything starts to make sense. Now, because of these comments in the past, I was forced to think, oh, well, then there must be something up ahead that explains everything why. So therefore, I already have an idea of what's going to come round eventually. Now, in a way, that is sort of a spoiler, because, I mean, it's not like an initial spoiler of telling me exactly what's going to happen, but you've already implanted the idea that this is what's going to come up, right? So, you know, just for those, like, kind of people, if, like, you know, if anyone reacts to Attack on Titan in the future, try and refrain from giving that sort of hint that, like, oh no, that, like, they're doing this, you know what I mean? They're not entirely evil either, you know, because I don't think you're supposed to know that at that point in the story. I think you're supposed to be as unassuming as the Paradis lot are. I think that's the whole point of the perspective writing in the show. When you start this show, your immediate thought is, fuck, it's humans versus titans, and that's all it is. It's like humans versus monsters. You don't think there's anything else beyond that when you start the show. And then all of a sudden, you like you start getting sprinkles, like, of mystery and things that happen, you know, across the course of the show. But the one thing that never changes is that you are always as unassuming, and you know as much as the main characters do in the show. We're never getting any real meta information that the Paradis lot don't know until they get to the cellar, to the basement, and get all of that information. And then all of a sudden, that's when you start, like, then, you know, you go into season 4, and then the perspective changes, and now you start seeing it from Marley's side. So I think, in terms of, like, you know, if that was the one thing that, like, I ended up being spoiled on reacting to this show, then I suppose I can't complain, because, you know, there's spoilers fucking everywhere for this show. I mean, before I watch the episode, I literally have to just avoid fucking social media until I can react to it entirely. So, you know, like, yeah, so I would say just, like, let people naturally have their opinions on a show, because if the show is good enough, which we know Attack on Titan is, it will bring the viewer back round, and it will tell the viewer, itself, why they were wrong in their assumptions, or why they should feel like a certain way. Okay, you don't need to tell people. I know that, like, obviously, you know, because of the nature of people watching reactions, they want people to react the same way they do, and they want to give that piece of information to them. But the thing is that you're depriving that person of actually, you know, reacting to the show in a natural way. You know, so that's what I would say. But yeah, this episode was great, because it was very much like what I talked about being full circle from everything from the first episode. This was everything that happened before that point. And because everything in that episode, like everything in this episode, was sort of tied to the first sort of, I guess, group of episodes for this show. For example, the cadet training, right? I think the cadet training was episode 3, I think, of season 1. And this being episode 3, season 4, we have that sort of, like, little sort of montage, I suppose, of the training that is happening over in Marley with Reiner and Bertolt and Annie and, you know, Marcel and Piek and everything like that. The Titan lineup was sick, by the way. I love the visual of that. Like, it's just really cool. Like, them, like, standing, obviously, against a fucking height wall thing. It's just a really, really cool visual, I think. And obviously giving these sort of, like, you know, stats and whatever, and, like, what they're good at and everything. But the versatility of the Titans is what they're focusing on. Whereas the cadet training in season 1, it's the fucking, what's his name? The previous fucking commander for the scouts, right? He became the cadet, like, commander or whatever, for, like, the training and stuff. He was going through, like, their individual, like, you know, strengths and weaknesses and whatnot when they were doing their training, like, with the maneuver gear and everything, right? But it's interesting that, obviously, on one side, the training with the, you know, the Titans is obviously focused upon their Titan abilities and everything, but on the Paradis lot, it's all about their human, you know, attributes and everything. So yeah, it's just really cool. And of course, like, the similarities between Reiner and Eren, that is just, at this point, like, yeah, I mean, obviously I've talked about that before previously, that there's always that sort of connection with them two, that's always kind of been apparent, you know, but this is where it, like, really drives it home. Like, they are so similar to an even further degree than, you know, previous, and that's really driven home in this episode, that, like, even before they have met, the similarities are there, and that those are the ones that are ever moving forward. So yeah, God. So I mean, where do we start? We'll just go from the very beginning, I guess so. Okay, so we start off with Reiner as a child. So he's being talked to by his mother. Mother says that the father is Marleyan. I'm guessing that was possibly a one-night stand thing, and that's how Reiner was born. And then the father fucked off, started another family with an actual Marleyan and everything like that. And because of that, the mother's obviously suffering. She has this. I think what the idea is that she has this. I suppose like kind of like a chip on her shoulder of obviously being Eldian and not being able to be with the Marleyan lot, and in order to become a Marleyan, the Eldians have to do the Marleyan's bidding. Now, I've already said that I don't even think, even if, no matter what the Eldians do, I don't think Marley's ever going to give them that anyway. But obviously they've had this information given to them that if they do their bidding for them, if they take care of the, and get the Founding Titan back, that they'll allow them to be Marleyan. But the thing is that in the Marleyan's head, they've already made up their mind on what the Eldians are. They're monsters. That's not going to change just because they got the Founding Titan, right? So I think it would just never, the idea is I think they want the Founding Titan so that they can have like, they can keep control of whoever has the Founding Titan, and then therefore they have full control over the Titans, meaning that, but still, they wouldn't allow Eldians to become Marleyan anyway. But I think the mother, anyway, Reiner's mother has a chip on her shoulder where she's thinking that, okay, if this happens, then we get to be with the father, even though the father's completely moved on. And at this point, considering the shit that he was talking to Reiner there, even if, in another world, if Marleyans did allow the Eldians to become Marleyan, because of what that dude said, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't even bother. You know what I mean? He has his own family now anyway, with another Marleyan woman and whatever, and Marleyan kids and everything. But yeah, I think that's obviously plays a part in what Reiner's mother, the reason why she's so desperate, and like in the last episode, immediately on Gabby to like keep pushing that that story forward, that no, they are devils, they have to be, But then it's that thing of like, you have these. Do you remember like so the back end of season 3, I think it was episode 20, when Grisha was talking about obviously Zeke, right, and trying to get Zeke in on the whole resistance thing and everything. That he said in the book and his diary, that what he didn't realize was how horrible it is to push an agenda on your kid, right? Well, the same thing is happening on the other side, and I think that's the overall message, right, of this show, is that each side is having the same problems. All of it is just a fucking like an agenda push, really, and it's happening on both sides. And with Eren, with it being Eren, oh god, I can't believe it's Eren. Look how long his hair is, dude. Jesus. With it being Eren and he's talking to Falco and everything, like, what he's saying, he now sees it, so he understands it. Which is crazy that we've got to this point, because that, it's crazy. Like, when I talk about obviously the perspective of being with like the Paradis lot and learning everything at the same time they do, like being in Eren's shoes, like now he knows this. For the longest time he hasn't known anything, and then he gets to the basement and he learns a hell of a lot, but he learns it from the resistance side, and now he's learning it from what's happening to the people who are being used by Marley. So it's crazy that just the similarities of I think that was a real, obviously, big point of this episode in particular, was obviously the similarities of Reiner and Eren, but also Paradis and the Eldians and Marley. So yeah, I mean, just getting to see everything beforehand, everything before the initial attack on Shiganshina. Reiner being the worst out of the lot, which is very surprising, and that the only reason that he was actually part of the group, the only reason why he got the Armored Titan, was because Marcel had talked to the brass about not bringing in Galliard and actually bringing in Reiner instead. And because of that, that's basically why Marcel gave up his life for Reiner, because he was feeling that, that regret of like, he basically forced Reiner into this position because he didn't want his brother going and being a Titan, which is crazy that everything that had happened, like, if you're talking about the full circle, the fact that the fact that Galliard, or Poco, which he doesn't go by anymore, ends up becoming a Titan anyway. Obviously, getting the Jaw Titan, which was Marcel's originally. That all of that was almost fun, like, you know, at least if, you know, Marcel was alive, all of it was for naught because Marcel ended up getting it anyway. You know, so when in the last episode when Galliard was talking about if I had gone instead of Reiner, that Marcel would still be alive. I mean, we don't know that, but I think what we would know is that Marcel wouldn't have died at that point. Like, I don't think Emiya would have ever gotten the Jaw Titan and everything like that. So, but we don't know how it would have went had Galliard been with the group in the initial attack on like the Paradis walls and everything. So, you know, yeah, it's interesting. But that, I mean, this episode, like, obviously setting up that sort of character, you know, relationship between Galliard and Reiner makes sense. That why, like, in episode 1, why those two were so, you know, they were looking at each other and everything, and Galliard coming in to save Reiner and everything is like a much more big deal, you know. So yeah, really, really good character writing as well. You know, continuing on with the similarities of Reiner and Eren, if we defeat Paradis, we save the world. It's the same thing with Eren being like, if we go over there and defeat our enemies, will we finally be free? Again, it's that juxtaposition, but it's not even a juxtaposition. It's just the same thing on either side. You know, it's not even a juxtaposition. That's completely opposite. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, so I guess going back to Reiner's father being Marley and being a fucking just, you know, a one of those that's just like, you know, he sees the Eldians as monsters and he doesn't see them as actual family because he's thinking like, you know, it's like my reputation is on the line. I'll lose my family. Like, I'll probably be killed for this if I'm seen with you, kind of thing. But the interesting thing was that in Reiner's head, yes, it was sort of beaten into him this idea that, you know, take Paradis, we get to save the world and everything. And but I think one of his the priority there was almost to get his mother and father back together so that they could be a family. But as soon as that was like out of the question because of what the father said to Reiner before he left, I think it put a lot of doubt in his head about going ahead. And then it wasn't until Marcel actually died and then Annie kicked the crap out of him that he realized like he had to take up this mantle of being Marcel and that sort of leader, you know. And that's when like it was like pushing ever onward, pushing forward. And who knows, even like Annie kicking the crap out of Reiner there could have been where you messed up his fucking brain a bit to where that's where he got the split personality. But nah, that's just a funny line I'm choosing to throw out there. Realistically, I think Reiner's split personality came when he saw Eren, like when he saw himself in Eren on the floor, and you know, when he picked him up and everything and told him about ever moving forward. I think that was the moment, because I think that was when legitimately Reiner saw what Eren is saying now, currently. With Eren with Eren infiltrating Marley, he's now saying the reasons why. I think that was the moment when, you know, when Reiner saw Eren on the floor, picked him up. I think that's when Reiner saw. So, yeah, it's... Oh, God, it's such good writing, man. It's so good. Yeah, but that was the moment where, you know, Reiner essentially became reliable when Annie kicked the crap out of him. Also, with Reiner coming, like, obviously behind Annie, basically chokeholding her, putting her to sleep, I think that happened immediately before they attacked. And that makes sense as to why Annie was never, like, the female Titan was never a part of the attack, in the initial attack. Because after it all happened, that's when she woke up, I think, right? Because that was one of the questions I always had, was that why did we never see the female Titan in that attack? I suppose like her Titan is what they refer to as more versatile, whereas like realistically the only, you know, Titan that was ever a Titan in the initial attack was Annie. So, you know, I think that was one of the questions I always had, was that why did we never see the female Titan in that attack? I suppose like her Titan is what they refer to as more versatile, whereas like realistically the only, in order for the Reiner's group and everything to actually get into the city, all they really needed was the Colossal and Armored Titan to break the gates. So the female Titan wasn't really necessary at that point. But that makes sense, though, as to why, like, she woke up and she was like, where are we? What's going on? It's like she got knocked out outside the walls, ended up inside, But yeah, and then from then on, it was very interesting seeing them. Not just obviously before everything had happened, which is obviously really cool, but what was happening during, like, their cadet training and everything. So obviously they would have, Annie out there getting intel, Kenny coming up again, which was mad. The fact that, like, Annie was actually trying to use Kenny as intel to get in on it, because obviously Kenny was one of those people that, like, very close to the royal family and everything. So she was barking up the sort of right tree, but also the wrong tree, because even she was getting almost nowhere with Kenny, because obviously Kenny being the guy that he is, it's like it's tough to get through in that guy. So yeah, really cool to see him again. God, like, it was just really cool. Bertolt's story as well, like having him sort of like alongside. Talking about the character rating as well with Bertolt was, his was very, aside from the guy who ended up like hanging himself, he took that guy's story. So that was really cool to learn that was the story that he told Eren and Armin that one time when they were on the bunk bed, right? And Eren obviously asked their story and whatnot, and Bertolt gave that guy's story. So it's interesting, like, how those sort of, they're not loose ends, but I love the fact that they bring them back just for the sake of character, like, development and everything. This is going to be great after this show is wrapped up, to go through it again, knowing all of the information, just because of these little things that they don't have to tie up, but they do. So it's just really cool. What else? Oh yeah, speaking of Bertolt as well, of course, like, the guy hanging himself, obviously the story, but also the fact of, like, his character never actually, like, changes. You see what he was like before, because obviously the whole thing with Bertolt was that he was very, like, he wasn't the one to be the leader. He was waiting on Reiner, and before that he would have waited, like, on Marcel to kind of give the orders before Bertolt would actually do anything. Bertolt wasn't very like, he never really initiated the first move, really. You know what I mean? Like, he was very put offish in that regard. Like, he would stand off a lot of the time, and that was the same with obviously when Reiner put Annie in the sort of the sleeper hold. That Bertolt was just standing back, like, just tearing up and just basically like, stop, guys. Like, he never applied himself in that way until the Battle of Shiganshina, where he inevitably died and Armin got the Colossal Titan. So yeah, just like, I love the fact that just it's the little things that make the show so good. So yeah, what else? Stop trying to ring us, man. Fucking hell, fucking phone. Yeah, so I guess we go to Eren now, right? Yeah. So Eren, it was Eren the whole time. I knew there was something there. You wouldn't put that in the fucking episode if it wasn't something to, like, especially in a show like this where detail is everything. Having the armband on the wrong arm was, it screamed Infiltrator, right? But we never actually got to see him last episode from in front. It was always like, it was either from behind or like slightly profile, where like obviously the long hair covers up a lot of the features and everything, and we never actually heard his voice. But as soon as in this episode when he started talking, I was like, that's fucking Eren. Like, you can tell by the inflection of his voice, and then eventually you see his eye, and obviously his eyes have always been a very a stark feature of who he is as a character. Going back to the first season in episode like 7 or something, 8. Whenever Eren's Titan shows up for the first time, right? And at that point you're like, what the fuck is this? Why is the Titan fighting other Titans? That the one thing that was obvious was his eyes. you know, which was like that. It's like that sort of greeny blue, tealy kind of aqua color, you know. So it was just Eren at all points. Like he obviously tore his own leg off or had his leg bitten off just to blend in. It's so good. And that's the thing now. Like even in human form, he's got to, like, you know, he must have that control of whether or not to heal when he wants to as well. You know, in order to obviously keep, because obviously he can't be just sitting around in there like and not knowing at any point his leg's going to grow back, because that'll just instantly give him away, you know. So he must have that control. But yeah, like I mean, the other thing as well is like listening to Eren talk to Falco, and you know, everything that Eren's saying, I'm completely believing what he's saying is true. Like back in episode 1, I said that I think Falco is a really sort of good kid, and he's going to be sort of crucial to the story when this wraps up in one way or another. That Eren's like calling him a good kid, and I think he truly means it. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's just he's saying. I don't think he's saying it for the sake of saying it just to get in. Obviously, he's wanting all the information that he can. Eren is, but I think it's you know, I don't think what he's saying is a lie. But obviously the interesting thing about it is that you can tell the truth. This is where you know that nothing is really different from the things that happened in Paradis to what happens in Marley. Like that you can tell the truth on both sides. Everything that Eren is saying about, like, when I came here, like what was the quote? He said, when I came here, he says that, like, he doesn't know the reason for doing this kind of thing, or like, how did it come to this? And it's like he's telling the truth without giving away the fact that he's from Paradis, because they're two. Everything is so similar on either side that he can sit there and tell his side of the story without giving away the fact of, like, of where he's from or who he is. So that just really, like, again, drives home the fact that it's so similar on either side. But that's exactly what it would be like. It's, you know, the aliens are the ones that are in that, you know, in that situation of being used, right? So, you know, I had a comment of someone saying that how can you call Marley evil when it was initially the aliens that were that initiated, I guess, that war against Marley, and then whatnot, you know. Now, how much is actually true versus propaganda, we don't know. But even if that was the fact, you can't not call somebody evil because of atrocities that were happening to them beforehand. Like, they're still Marley are still a warmongering faction. We saw that in this episode when they were testing the you know, Reiner's group, the warrior candidates, with their titans. One of the Malian guys literally just said, like, they destroyed a nation. They literally just destroyed a nation with their titans. So yeah, they're warmongers and they are evil, and they're using the Eldians for that power and to get their own way. So yes, Marley is evil. I can call Marley evil because of that. But yeah, I mean, it's just the Eldians really that are being used at this moment in time. So of course those are the ones that we sympathise with. That's how it works. So yeah. Eren, yeah, saying that those who push forward through hope see a different kind of hell. So yeah, that's the thing, is that what Eren's learning right now is that even though he's obviously learning everything that's happening, he still has to push forward, which is why at this point in the show, that's when you can sympathise with Reiner's group totally in its entirety, right? Because like I said before, like, you can't, you know, realistically before in previous seasons, you can't associate Reiner's group and being very, I guess he can be sympathetic towards them because of some things that they do say, but realistically your side has, you're having to side with the protagonist group, which is the Paradisians, right? But up until this moment where it's actually totally, I mean, it's shown to you in its entirety 100% that it's exactly the same with Reiner, that even Reiner and his split personality, and when he forgot who he was and everything in those moments, that like he still pushes onwards. And that's the reason why Reiner's seeing, similar to what Eren will now, Reiner was seeing that different kind of hell, right, through hope of saving the world, or anything that he had beforehand. All of that didn't matter when he saw the atrocities that he was committing, but he kept having to move forward with it, right? And now Eren, at this point, when he's talking about that to Falco, he now understands that. So it's very interesting to obviously get that perspective from Eren, because obviously in this season, this is the first time we've actually had a Paradisian talk to the, and because we've had 3 years since the end of season 3, in that sort of time that's been elapsed, we haven't seen any of the Paradisian lot since then. To see, I was wondering how they would be, I want to see where they were at in terms of like if they advanced technology anywhere, like what they were thinking, like how they progressed. I wanted to see what they were like, and the fact that we're seeing Eren now like in that state of like he's infiltrated, he's learning information, he's in reconnaissance essentially. But the fact is that now he knows all of this stuff. At this point he's got to realize that like this is the reason why. Obviously, in his mind, he's obviously thinking about Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie, and at any point like during that time of reconnaissance, whenever he figured out that information, he had to have thought about that, because consistently the Paradisian lot were just asking themselves why this is happening. I don't know. Well, why are you doing this? Why? And he finally gets that information, and now he understands why. It's going to be interesting. Like, we have to get a moment where Eren and Reiner meet up. We have to, like, to talk. And I'm not talking about just initially like Eren's in his Titan form, Reiner's in his Titan form, and they fight. I don't see that being the case, because they don't talk in that. We've seen Eren talk once, right, as a Titan. I'm sure we have, but I could be wrong. Where am I thinking about that? Maybe not. Maybe we haven't. No, maybe we haven't. I think what I'm getting confused at there is the fact that obviously we always hear we always hear Eren talk when he's in his Titan form, right? We always hear like his inside voice. So maybe I'm getting that wrong. But regardless, like I'm talking like man to man kind of thing, like being like finally they're on the same page. Like they understand why what happened. The problem you have there is, how does that change Eren's course? With Eren knowing about it, the fact that he mentioned that they have to move, like push forward, does that mean that Eren has just succumbed to the fact that he still has to push forward no matter what? The thing is that I've already talked about how I think the show might end, and it will be, I think it's got to do with Armin in particular, because he was the last one to gain a Titan. So he's got the most time. He's also the one that he cares about more than fighting, right? So I think if anyone's going to get, to wrap this up, I don't think it's Eren in particular. Eren's going to be that fucking, that vanguard guy to go in and keep the fucking, like, I guess the fighting as they need to and whatever. But I think Armin's the one, obviously, to come up with that solution that can end this for good. And I think that will go through Falco. I think they're setting that up as that, I think that makes sense to me. So the interesting thing I'm looking for, I really want a man-to-man talk with Eren and Reiner. I really need that. That would just be really cool. Because they're so similar, and they thought themselves as like brothers almost, and it's just like, they need to air this out. I think the viewer really wants them to air this out as well, because just like Eren, we've also asked why the whole time, and now we've got it. we can air this out. It's understanding on both sides. It's they're empathizing, they're sympathizing, all of it. Speaking of which, Reiner was almost about to kill himself, but he didn't, because there's still that fucking thing. There's still that in his head of like ever pushing forward, right? And he obviously looks out the window, which isn't a window. Sees Falco. Obviously, he needs to obviously pass on, it to them, so that the Armor Titan doesn't get given to somebody random, right? Because that's what would happen. A new Eldian born into the world, a random one would get it. So there's still that in his head of ever moving forward. But this is the thing, like, God, like, can you imagine if Reiner comes to our side? Can you imagine that? God. I don't think it'll happen. But it's fun to imagine if it did, I think too much has happened for Reiner to actually join the Paradis slot, but maybe, like, if there was a meetup, maybe they could just lay everything out on the table and just be like, yeah, whatever happens now, but at least they are content with each other at some degree, something like that would be really cool. Annie as well, like, always looking out for herself. I looked back at what she was doing under that tree, and I can't grasp what it is that I'm looking at. It's a bunch of, like, leaves. There was something like a liquid, but it looked like smoke as well, and I didn't know what she was doing. The only thing I can have in my head is, like, well, no, because she wasn't even the female Titan at that point, so I don't know what she was doing at that point, unless she was digging something, possibly. That could be it. She could have been covering something up. So I'll have to remember that. I'll write that down because I just in case. But because I don't know what else that could be. The thing is that Reiner and Bertolt looked over and saw that. So it could be a thing that Reiner goes under that tree, remembering what was happening that day, and like actually sees what it is. Or we get fucking actual, like, Annie back, because remember that's the other thing, is like Annie's still in this somehow, right? The question is whether or not they have got her out of it at this moment in time, or she's still in there. But regardless, I think she's still part of this story somehow, some way. So yeah, I mean, to Annie, yeah, so always looking out for herself, dragged into other people's mess all the time. That's something that, again, similar to the Bertolt thing, is like, that stuff always was apparent for those characters. Like, Bertolt didn't initiate anything, and he was kind of standoffish, and Annie always looking out for herself, but always getting dragged into other people's mess. Like, that time with Armin, which, ended up in that final fight at the end of season 1. And also, like, getting dragged by Reiner into that. I mean, they were going to turn back as well without Marcel, and Reiner was like, nah, we're continuing on. So yeah, she's just getting dragged into other people's mess, and because of that, like, it's interesting to think that, like, maybe that's like Reiner about to kill himself. With that information, knowing that, like, he dragged them to continue on, and because of that, Annie was captured. They still don't know what happened to Annie, by the way, do they? They still have no idea. And Bertolt is dead, so it's Marcel died because of and like that whole situation, like, died to save him. Reiner's got to be feeling like a lot on his shoulders, you know what I mean, because of that, like a lot of regret. So it's a bit, yeah, I mean, it's a lot for, like, Reiner's shoulder. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got. I think that's it. So yeah, really cool episode. I'm just really enjoying this season so far. The difference in perspective and everything just coming full circle is everything that I'm wanting from this season. But now we know that Eren's in there. It's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. So anyway, yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you for watching. Again, you can watch the full length to this reaction in the description below. There's also a link to the to the Discord if you want to get over there. And there's also a link to my Patreon page as well. So if you don't support me on Patreon, that'd be very much appreciated. There is a bunch of different tiers and rewards on there, like early access. $5 a month gives you access to shows a week early, and there's the full length, which obviously gives you access to full-length reactions to all of the things that I watch. There's also the exclusive tier, which gives you access to full-length movie reactions as well. So if you want reactions to movies in full length and everything like that, which are coming up very soon, then that is the one for you as well. But that is all I got. So thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.